Georgia and Tech getting ready to play here very soon. Dean Legge, Ryan Curley, and we're going to talk about practice from earlier today. Ryan, you said it was one of the least interesting ones that you've seen in some time. Tell us why.
Yeah, I mean, this was the fourth or fifth one that they let us watch this season, and it's the first time in a few weeks. But there just wasn't, each time there's been like, oh, look at that, something interesting, such as when George Pickens was out there for the first time.
Right.
That's a prime example, or someone not being out there. But everyone was pretty much out there. There wasn't anything that seemed to be different than the last few weeks. It just seems like the machine is rolling and things are ticking the way they should be, and they're just getting ready to beat Georgia Tech and play Alabama. That's what their mindset is right now.
that's pretty. That's a pretty bold statement, although not a very. Well, is it a bold statement? It might
I
not
don't think
be.
it's a bold
No,
statement.
I don't think so. Look, I've spent a lot of the day talking on our various channels about the importance of this Tech game for those of us who grew up in Atlanta. You grew up in Buford, really, right?
Yes.
What was that like at the time for you, sort of a early 2000s baby? Did the Tech game seem like a big deal at the time? Can you recall? There's no right answer to this.
Um, I remember them. I mean, the first game I ever went to was, and I told you this the other day, was a Georgia Tech game in
Yeah.
Athens, and Georgia beat the crap out of them.
What year was
For
that?
the most part, that was 12.
Hmm.
That was the first Georgia game I ever went to. And just from as much as I can remember, Georgia's beat up on them most of the years. I know they've lost a couple times in the last decade,
Hmm.
but to me, Auburn was a bigger rival. Alabama has been a bigger rival. Even Florida, just because they've struggled more against those teams compared to Tech. Tech is kind of just growing up in the era I did has always been a little bit of an afterthought compared to those guys.
Even Florida. Um,
Even Florida.
Yeah, I would say that Alabama is not a rival. Alabama is a big game that Georgia plays
But you know what I mean,
more and
right? I know it's
more.
not
Yeah.
technically a rival, but there's tension there.
Well, this is why I discussed this earlier today, and if you saw this on some of these videos, is that the younger you are, the less likely you are to appreciate the venom of this rivalry because you've seen it be very one-sided. What year were you born?
Oh, one.
So in your lifetime, Georgia Tech has won three times. So I mean, this is about like Michigan, Ohio State. I'm sure there's a lot of Ohio State fans that are like, well, I don't, what's the big deal? But that's a problem Georgia Tech's, kind of running into these days with an athletic department that's producing a football program that's only won three games in its last three seasons. So that's not three games a year of the last three seasons. That's not what you want. They do play well about once a year. This season they beat North Carolina at the Dome, but I don't know. So getting back to practice real quick, why? So George update.
Same deal with the non-contact, and of course we didn't get to see any real scrimmaging, but he's the best wide receiver on the team, and
Yeah,
I I'm not a doctor, so I don't know, and I'm not a
yeah.
coach, but I don't know. I think it's caution is the only thing really holding him from being out of there at this point. I mean, he was
Well,
dressed out last game.
to me, it's like, hey, listen, if he's not going to play, why is he practicing? Like, there's this discussion that,
So
well, that's a simplistic way of putting it, to be honest. But if he's certainly not going to play, then he wouldn't practice. He wouldn't be out there in pads on game day, which happened against Charleston Southern. I don't think it's a certainty that he plays, but I don't think it's at all out of the question. I mean,
I think
I'm
they,
talking about in the future. I'm not talking about the Tech game. I'm not necessarily talking about the Alabama game. I'm talking about the Cincinnati, Ohio State, whoever it may be, Notre Dame game in the near future, in a month. I mean, a
I
month
feel
from
like
now,
they're
you're telling me he
targeting.
won't play?
Their goal is to have him play at least one game this year, right? They just want him out there. He needs to get out there if he wants, to bring his stock back up as far as the NFL goes. I don't know. I'm not. I don't know what his stock is right now. I still think he's one of the two or three most talented receivers in the country, regardless of being healthy or not. But he's running routes like normal. It doesn't look like he's missed a step. It looks like the old George Pickens, just as far as
Just
speed
snatching the
goes,
ball and all that
snatching the
one.
ball
Yeah.
with ease, outrunning people. I mean, he's just a physical freak. He's a superstar talent, and I think it's more of a caution thing at this point. But he still had a brace on and still in the non-contact jersey. But we know he's playing scout team and he's getting actual like scrimmage reps. I don't know if he's being tackled or not.
And your intel on that is that he has played well with the scout team.
My intel is that he is balled out.
Balled out.
And yeah, those were the words I was told. That he's difficult to guard. No one can really contain him.
We're middle of week 11 going into week 12. I guess it's technically week 12. We're not talking about the starting quarterback. We're not talking about when JT will return. We've seen JT return. We're not talking about so much stuff that sort of consumed the beginning of the season, which really was the quarterbacks or is the quarterback, has been the quarterbacks. But don't you think that JT has to be ready in case something stupid happens? I mean, you're the backup quarterback, you know. It's what
He
it
definitely
is.
has to be ready, and I think he is ready. I mean, obviously he's gotten a couple games to shake the rust off. Now they got to feel comfortable playing either guy at this point, in my opinion. And just from what I saw today, it looked like Stetson still got the starting job.
Sure. I
It's
don't think
hard
that's
to
good. Do you
tell.
think that's going to
It's hard to tell
change?
him. I think
Surely, or
that
not acting
I
like it's going to
I
change.
I don't. I think he's the starter unless he gets hurt or plays
Right.
really bad.
Yes, both. I
I
think
think that's
that's
what it
correct.
is. I think JT probably looked a little bit better than him on Saturday. Just
Yeah,
not
I know
to
what you're
played
saying.
amazingly. I mean, Stetson
Well,
didn't. The game script wasn't for Stetson to come in there and play well. It was for them to get out of this game and to let a lot of guys play.
it's almost like you read Leggy's thoughts from after the game. I will go to that in a second here.
Maybe you're just rubbing off on me.
Oh God, I hope for your sake that is not the case. But you were eating brownies like a crazy person Saturday night, which is
I
all I
had three
do.
brownies. I
You know
was
what? After y'all all left, I ate three. I did not eat four, which was th- some sort
It
of
was. I had a good day. I enjoyed the day. I wanted to end it with a treat.
yeah. I eat too many treats, to be
Three was too many
honest.
though. Three is too many.
Well, this is what I do. I kind of overdo it. This is the section that I talked about right here. I thought Stetson Bennett was cold today, at least at first. I would say that today was not where Bennett is going to shine sitting in the pocket, but he played better as the game went on. Bootlegs and things like that, and things that get him out in space, are the way to use Bennett, and that wasn't what today was about. You always want as much accuracy as possible from any quarterback in the game, and I think for me, Ryan, that game, I don't know. I've seen Georgia play better. Excuse me, I've seen the quarterbacks play better. But let me just say this one thing, okay? Do you know what number Georgia's offense is in the country right now? You want to take a
In the
guess?
country,
Yeah,
back half of the top 10.
that's a very smart guess because you know that I wouldn't ask you that without it being higher than you would think. So you say, so who would be in front of them, just off the top of
Ohio
your head?
State would be in front of them. Alabama would be in front of them. Oklahoma would probably be in front of them.
Okay,
Cincinnati's probably scored more points than them.
okay.
So
The
that's
score,
four.
the scoring
We're
offense.
talking. What are we talking about? Scoring offense?
Well, now you're. Yes,
There's
that's
different
that's that's
things.
what I meant the whole time. But okay,
Georgia's hovering around the 40-point mark.
they are at 40.3. So
Yeah.
one is Ohio State, two Bama, three Pittsburgh, four
Okay.
Wake. Western Kentucky is number five, six Coastal Carolina, and seventh is the Georgia Bulldogs. Cincinnati at eight,
That
SMU
was going to be
nine,
my guess.
Oklahoma then Tennessee, North Carolina at 14, 15 Michigan. I really am paying attention to that Michigan Ohio State game because I don't think it's out of the
You're not
question.
as confident in Ohio
I
State
am
as I
not.
am.
Well, I think Ohio State will win the game, but I would not be shocked. I would not be shocked if Michigan won that game. It's a home game. Now, let me get back to this one, thing I'm trying to hammer home here, which is that Georgia this season has sort of held the team that it plays to, now not every single game, but to about 20 points fewer than they typically score. So for Ohio State, at rolling in at 47 a game, which is a lot, that would put them around 28. Okay, could Georgia beat Ohio State if Ohio State scored 28 points?
I think so.
Okay.
I think Georgia's very capable of putting up 30. How many games have they not? One?
Ohio State.
No, how many games has Georgia not scored at least 30
Oh
points? Just
boy,
one?
that is a good question. Well,
Just the Clemson game, right?
obviously the Clemson game, but
I,
Clemson.
they've hit the 30 mark in every other game.
No, you're right. Golly, I thought it was below 30 at some point. And see, man, before this season started, they hit 30 on the nose with UK. Before this season started, I wrote a lot about, hey, these guys are going to have to score more. They're going to have to score over 40 points. It's going to have to be around 45. But the defense has taken so much of our time, imagination, and energy that that's been, that's been the focus of this thing. And so we sort of tend to forget that the offense of Georgia has played pretty well this season, generally speaking. I mean, listen, man, I think their best offensive performance was the Vanderbilt game. But, you look at the UAB game, 56
The UAB game
points.
was good too.
The
That
Arkansas game, 37 points. Honestly, the way that was a tough situation at Auburn, they scored 34. Against the Gators, they did not play well offensively. I thought that Florida did play well defensively, and that was a 34-7. Against Missouri, I'm trying to remember if that was a good game or not. I thought Stetson. Stetson. None of these
Missouri was what, like
quarterbacks.
43-6 or 43-7?
43-6, and then 41-17 for the Tennessee game. Listen, for me, what I do and what we do with what we do is we're critics of quarterbacks. And currently, the starting quarterback at Georgia is Stetson Bennett. When Aaron Murray was the starting quarterback, there was criticism of Aaron. It was overdone, but there was criticism of Aaron. And I think people appreciated Aaron Murray too late. Um,
Hey, when I was a kid, that he was the first Georgia
he couldn't do
quarterback
any.
when I started watching
Yeah.
Georgia. I loved him. I mean, I vaguely remember watching Stafford, but I was young.
Well, he got his
I
fair
loved
share of
Aaron
criticism
Murray.
too. But when you play
Every
that,
quarterback's gonna get criticized.
yes, when you play that spotlight position, that's what it is. And I remember saying a year ago, well, JT really didn't play that great against Cincinnati except in that last drive, and he almost had 400 yards. That's not Stetson's game. That's not how this team is structured with Stetson. I don't know how much I believe the leadership stuff. I think people say that because they don't know how any other way to describe things. I think, to me, Stetson just has played well, and that's it. He's not played perfect. His best game was against Auburn. I thought he controlled that game. And guys are going to be inaccurate with throws. You just don't want them throwing picks. That pick that he had on Saturday, and we should not discuss any one play, but I don't recall with the Charleston Southern pick that looked like it got tipped, but I was actually walking out of the press box at that exact moment, or looking down, one of the two. I think I was looking down because I was shooting, and I just missed that play. No, I had a 600 millimeter lens. Now you know what I'm talking about, right? How you can miss stuff sometimes.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I
I
missed
had
that.
a hard time seeing it from where I was on the
Mhm.
field, that particular play.
At least
But
Georgia shows
that
replays.
I was more mad about the almost interception he had, or
Mm.
more mad, more skeptical. He just threw one, and it looked like he was trying to throw it out or throw a fade route, and
I,
it didn't get out of bounds. And the Charleston Southern kid was just not athletic enough to pick it off. It was just out
I
there.
know what you're talking about.
Those
Yeah.
were the kinds of
You
throws you
know,
can't.
my only thing with Stetson is, and I think people, I don't know if they totally understand Stetson's mindset. Stetson thinks he's Superman, okay? All these quarterbacks do. And just because Stetson's smaller doesn't mean he thinks any differently. I think the difference in Stetson's play this year, the progression has been he's not played hero ball. And that's a term, as an NBA fan, that when you get into the playoffs and one guy
Yeah.
tries to will their team to victory and they start doing stuff that's a little bit over the top. Stetson made a smart play at Tennessee, throwing that ball with his left hand at midfield. I got to tell you, on the field at that exact second, it felt to me like he was playing hero ball. But he wasn't, as it turns out. I think if Stetson doesn't play hero ball, Georgia will probably win the national championship. And to this point, he's really not tried to play hero ball, man. He's played well. I am
Uh,
I let me spit this last thing out, Ryan. I have grown to understand and accept that real quarterbacks throw interceptions. They just do. And you just have to live with that. Um, I think you don't want plural, multiple interceptions in a game if you can help it. But for Stetson, those legs, man, they're something else. They're hard to deal with. And they come when you least expect it seems. He's very smart.
I think he's a better thrower of the football than maybe we give him credit for, but it's not as consistent as JT, and that's what
Right.
we,
That's right.
not as consistent. But there's two throws this year that Stetson made that, I almost went like I didn't know he could do that. One of them
Which
was
one?
Kyrus Jackson against Florida,
Right.
the Kyrus, and the other one was in stride to Lad against
Auburn.
Auburn.
Yeah.
Um,
And
he can
JT
throw
can
that
do
ball, man.
JT can do the spectacular for sure more often than Stetson, but there's something about his ability to be steady with the run game that you don't get from JT, or at least JT's not shown. So if you could mold the two together, you would have a very good quarterback. That's not how it works, though. I mean, if I had your hair, for instance, I would probably be a star.
Oh,
No,
okay.
no, we're not going to do
Well,
that.
I chopped some of it off,
Which
so
is, now we're talking about your hair, which was probably a mistake.
it's not the first time that's been brought up on here, though.
I
So
know people are so vain. These poor women that are on TV,
what
they
they
get
say,
judged by what they look like rather than what they
they throw
say.
me in that category too, I guess. They compared me to Carson Beck, I think.
I
That's
can
what they
see that a
said.
little bit. We got to get like
He's getting
he's getting close to a man bun situation.
his hair is probably thicker than mine.
But dude,
I don't care.
The Vandegrift
Vandegrift.
hair
Oh, I do have
situation
something about
is,
Vandegrift
yeah.
too.
Go ahead.
Vandegrift threw a rifle, man, to his former high school teammate today, through in traffic. So
He really could
I've
be,
heard about some accuracy issues with him, but
and you
there
can
wasn't on that particular play.
see that with Brock at time. I look, man, they've got some good quarterbacks up there,
I think they're set for years. I
yeah,
mean,
they have got some good quarterbacks up there, and I think for Carson or Brock, I mean, they have to be able to come in and make mistakes, and you're seeing Carson work through those. I mean, Carson had a beautiful throw on Saturday to the left sideline to Darnell, I think it was. It might have been a little low, but it was a nice throw. And with Brock, I just have seen enough of Brock to know what he can bring to the table. And
his legs too.
his legs, I was actually literally only going to talk about his
Okay.
legs. They are real trouble for a defender or a defense. And then we saw 2 weeks ago with him up there in the
Gunnar
mountains.
Stockton.
Gunnar
Yeah.
Stockton
Up there in
looked
the boonies.
well, but he looked really good, man. And you
He is
just
really good. I'm more impressed with him every time I see him.
yeah, yeah. And so
Um,
Georgia
it's going to be
understands what they're
really
getting.
interesting next year. It's going to be really interesting next year because there could be 6 guys. I think someone's going to have to leave probably.
6?
If
Is that
they all come back,
four?
or
Four,
five.
five?
My
Yeah.
apologies, 5. But you'd have 5 legitimate quarterbacks next year if you throw Gunner into the mix, because I think he is good enough to start one day at Georgia.
I think so.
I don't think that will happen next
No,
year.
not
But
next year.
Brock will have the advantage of being in the system and playing scout team for a whole year
Yeah.
over Gunner Stockton.
That makes a
That's going to be
big
his
difference.
advantage. Yeah, I
I
think.
can attest to that. It makes a big
I mean,
difference.
he has a whole year. He's been pretty much the scout quarterback for the whole season, other than when JT's been out there a couple of those weeks. But he was wearing the 13 jersey today, Brock. So I guess is that Jeff Sims? Is that the name of the quarterback
I
for
can't
Tech?
remember. He's a very
Someone
gifted athlete,
he's
and he's
from
not.
around
He's from
Atlanta.
Jackson. Jeff Sims. Now,
Am I
wait a
thinking
second.
of
Now,
I'm thinking of someone else maybe.
Sims is the quarterback who is from Jacksonville. The
Who am I thinking about? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Well, Jeff Sims is number 10 for the Jackets.
Let me
The
look this up.
number 13 is the young man from Milton, who
That's who I'm thinking about. Yeah, the Milton
yeah.
kid. I think that's who Brock was mocking today. So is that I guess that I know they've had kind of different quarterbacks this year. Tech
Yeah,
has
they Jordan Yates is a quarterback
Jordan Yates.
from Milton. He's only a couple years out, a very I mean pretty young, but
I remember watching him on TV in the state championships a couple years ago.
he's a good player. I mean, he's a good player. They've got two, what I would call gifted quarterbacks. I don't think they have Georgia's going to kill Georgia Tech, okay? But when you start talking about the quarterbacks at Tech, I mean, they're not bad. We've seen
No,
worse quarterbacks this season, and um, with Yates over Sims, I think you've seen that Tech is preferring steadiness. But it's all good to be steady until you got Jordan Davis and then a Kobe Dean running, breathing down your neck. And
that's
this
just two of them,
defense,
man.
this I was just gonna say, this defense is hard to deal with, and I just don't
I
know
don't,
how the Tech's gonna
you
get
know,
around
I
it.
I love watching Jordan Davis. Jordan Davis is going to be a first round pick, but there's probably two or three guys on
Jordan
that
Davis,
line that are more talented than him. And the two in my head that first pop up is
Tra-
Jalen Carter and Trayvon
Trayvon
Walker.
Walker, yeah. I
I think
mean,
they're probably more.
are they
They're
more talented or are they more diverse with what they can do? I would say they're more diverse with what they can do because Jordan has a very specific set of tools and he
his
can
size
do that very
and his
well.
speed. Trayvon Walker is just one of the athletic freaks of the team.
Um, totally. I mean, there's
And
just
Jalen Carter is probably the strongest kid on the team. I think that's what Jordan said a few weeks ago, or he
and,
said he's stronger than him.
and probably the second best punter behind Jake Camarda. He's not a bad punter. I'm just telling you
The
right now.
stacked defense, man. It's a stacked defense,
They
and
are.
they had to adjust with Adam Anderson being out, and Kirby talked a little bit about that today, how they went from 6 DBs to 5, or the other way around, something like that. He told us, "I'm going to make it simple for you guys to understand."
Oh,
It was a little condescending there, but
well, he can. He does that from time to time.
he like
Well,
he
and
like he
it's
likes
not it's
bringing
not a
it
real
back up.
it's not a great it's not a group of Rhodes scholars up there either. No matter what some of them think about themselves, and they know who they are. Anyway, all right, we'll end it there. Yeah, yeah. All right, we'll see you on the website dogpost.com.